Hi, I'm Curious Vedant, and welcome to season 6 of my podcast. Today, my guest is Jonas Geisler, a documentary filmmaker and a travel blogger. Hi, Jonas. Welcome to my show.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good.
Jonas, you traveled through Australia at just 18. What inspired you to start traveling at such a young age?
Yes, in fact, this trip to Australia was my first trip alone without my family, and I stayed there for a whole year. And I decided to travel there right after finishing school because I just wanted to have a little change after 12 years of this routine of going to school every day and basically spending all the time in school or doing homework. I decided I need some break from that, and I want to see something of the world. So I decided to travel. Also, I didn't know yet what I wanted to do, what I wanted to study, or what I wanted to work as. So that's why I decided to go there. And Australia is a pretty common choice for German teenagers or young adults to go to because it's really easy to get a working holiday visa, meaning you can go there, you can get jobs very easily, earn some money, and then spend this money traveling.
Yeah, Australia, what did you see there? Was it were there lots of nature reserves or was it big cities? I don't know because I've never been to Australia.
Yeah, both actually. This is what I really like about Australia. When I arrived, I stayed in Sydney first, which is a really big city, but also a lovely city close to the ocean. So you have so many beaches. You can go surfing. You have a lot of national parks surrounding Sydney where you can go hiking or swimming in some small rivers with waterfalls. But it's also a big city that kind of feels like those Western cities that I knew from Europe. So I stayed there for a while and I worked. But when I had enough money, I started to travel out of the city and I went into the nature. I went to Tasmania, which is a very small island with big, big mountains where you can do hiking. Then I went to the outback, that is basically desert and hundreds of kilometers of sand and rocks. They have jungles as well, and a lot of really, really nice animals like the crocodiles, the kangaroos. Also, I went scuba diving in Australia for the first time and I saw the whale sharks and turtles and so many fish and coral. So it's a very big variety of nature, I would say.
Wow, that sounds really nice. Did you also go to New Zealand?
No, actually, I didn't. I decided to spend the whole year that I got with this visa in Australia, and then maybe at some point I can get a similar visa for New Zealand and take my time there as well. But I wanted to use all this time in Australia because it's such a big country, and I traveled East Coast, West Coast, South, Center, everywhere. It took a lot of time.
Yeah, it has 4 really big states, right?
I think 4 or 5. I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah.
Can you see it on your map?
Yeah.
So if you say it's 4, then I will believe you. But I think it might be 5.
Wow. And there are also deserts in Australia, right?
Yes, actually the biggest part of Australia is desert. And I remember I took a train from the city of Adelaide, which is the south coast, and then I went all the way to Alice Springs that is a very small town in the middle of Australia in the desert. And this train ride took 1.5 days crossing the desert.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very old train. Feels like a trip back in history.
Wow, 1.5 days.
Yeah, basically. And we had to stop somewhere in the middle of the desert to get gas, so gasoline for the train. And before we were allowed to leave the train, some people had to go out there and search for snakes to make sure that the area is safe before we exit the train.
Wow. That's 1.5 days in a train. That seems worse than quarantine.
Yeah, it might seem like that, but I really did enjoy it. And of course, I also slept on the train, and it was very comfortable, big seats, not like in the airplane, but really big, so you can actually um, arrange your seat as a little bed to sleep in it. It was really comfortable.
Mhm. Wow. And did you see many things, or was it like mostly desert?
During the train ride, it was
Yeah.
mostly desert, but sometimes you could see some really small villages where they would do mining, and some animals too, like kangaroos mostly, and these big birds. Is it called an ostrich?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, right? Some ostriches too.
Wow.
But mostly sand, red sand, and some rocks.
That seems cool.
But I did spend a lot of time walking up and down the train to discover all the areas, like first class, second class, the restaurants, because it was a very old train. Felt like a history museum to me to walk through the train.
Wow. And how did this trip to Australia shape your interest in journalism and photography?
That's a very good question, because in Australia, that was the first time that I actually spent a lot of time doing photographs. I did sometimes do photographs before, but in Australia, I always had my camera with me, and I was photographing all the things that I was visiting and seeing. And instead of just sending these pictures to friends and families, I decided very early in the trip to create a travel blog. So basically, this is the first time I did journalism in a way. It was not real journalism yet, but I started to write down stories, write down my experiences, think about how to capture the photographs in order to explain the situation here. So I would say these were the first steps of me getting and becoming interested in telling stories. And also, I loved traveling very much. When I was in Australia, I realized I want to travel a lot more in future. And I realized that journalism and especially filmmaking, documentary filmmaking, is such a good profession to travel and do something while traveling and getting paid for it.
That actually sounds really cool.
So at the end of the trip, after this 1 year in Australia, I knew that I wanted to study filmmaking and to become a filmmaker.
And now it's your career.
My career nowadays is that I do work as a documentary filmmaker. I have finished my film studies 2 years ago, and since then I'm working as a documentary filmmaker, mostly for German TV. So yes, it has become my career, which is really nice.
You have had the opportunity to film underwater. What are some of the most exciting things you have filmed? And do you want to film underwater more in the future?
Yes, that's true. I have filmed one film underwater. Most of the films I've done were filmed above the water on land, but last year we went to Belize, which is a small country in Latin America, and we were filming the coral reef, and especially a fish that is called lionfish. It's an invasive species, meaning it doesn't live. It didn't live in the Caribbean before, but it went there somehow, And now this lionfish starts to disturb the natural ecosystem, eating the local fish and killing the small fish, the kids of the fish. So what I was filming and what that was also really impressive to me is how people there try to hunt for the lionfish. So I was able to accompany some local scuba divers with big spears, harpoons, and they were searching the reef for this invasive lionfish. And whenever they saw a lionfish, they started to shoot the lionfish with these spears and kill it, basically to save the reef. And that was really interesting to me, especially the part where they trained new scuba divers to hunt for lionfish. It was like a real training session underwater. Everybody was shooting with these tiny harpoons. And yeah, that was really nice to see. But also the the reef in general, with big turtles, big eels, lots of sharks as well. And the sharks are very used to the scuba divers, so they come very close and you can actually touch them. And they have big schools of fish as well, which I always enjoy. But I have to say that filming underwater is very different than just scuba diving, because I always carry this really, really big camera with me. That is a camera, and then on each side a 1 meter arm with a light attached to it. So the whole unit is almost 2 meters wide, and it was really challenging for me to be stable at diving and not sink or float while focusing on the camera. So this trip also teach me a lot about scuba diving, because at the end of filming, I think I became a lot better in scuba diving.
And also, those cameras would need to be waterproof, right? Because if my mom's camera goes into the pool, it's gone.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we use a normal cinema camera, but you need a big housing for it, like a metal shield surrounding the camera. So it's a normal camera, but inside an underwater housing.
Oh, so the camera itself still isn't waterproof.
No, the camera itself is not waterproof. So it was very difficult whenever I had to change battery in the ship. I had to take it out and make sure that no water splashes onto the camera. And then I put it back into the housing and continued diving.
Wow. I actually didn't know that. I thought that there were special cameras.
No, actually not. Just like for consumers, they have the GoPro or the small cameras, but for TV and cinema, it's usually normal cameras inside a housing. But the housing is far more expensive than the camera.
Yeah, obviously, because it's special.
Special, and they don't sell much. This kind of camera that we use, the Blackmagic, I think they sell thousands of it worldwide, but the housing, maybe a couple of hundreds.
Yeah.
Because not many films are shot underwater.
And is each housing special for each camera, or can you use your same? So you can't use the same housing for your camera for another camera?
No, you cannot. You have to rent the right housing for this exact camera, because the buttons of the camera are extended through the housing, meaning that the housing has buttons, and with tiny little gears, there will be some technical parts pressing the actual button inside the housing, and it doesn't work if there is another camera inside.
I had no idea that those even existed.
Yeah, it does. I can send you a picture later, but it looks really, really fancy. Also, the housing for the lens itself is almost 0.5 meter long. So the thing is 2 meters wide, 0.5 meter long, and it's really, really heavy as well above the water. But as soon as you're in the water, it's basically weightless.
And do you need any special lenses, or can you use a normal lens?
You can use a normal lens, but the lens has a housing as well, and this housing has a special lens in front of it that will somehow, I don't know actually how it works, but it will prepare the light from the water to work with the normal lens. I didn't explain that very well because I don't know what it does actually, but there is a special lens unit in front of the actual lens.
That's really, really cool to know.
It is. Yeah, it was so much fun. And you asked if I wanted to do that again. And actually, yes, I want to film more underwater. And I will in October. I will return to Belize and film again underwater.
Out of all the places you have traveled to, which is probably loads, which one stands out as your favorite?
I think I can name 2 or 3 places, because I do like lots of places. And also it's different if I travel for work, then it's a different travel experience compared to when I travel for pleasure, right? But I think for work, my favorite place that I traveled to might be Namibia in Africa. I went there a year ago, and we were shooting a lot of wildlife, meaning I saw groups of zebras with 2,000 or 3,000 animals, lots of giraffes, elephants, even lions. And that was really, really fun. Just driving with four-wheel drive into the national park and then film animals. I really, really enjoyed it. And also the desert is really beautiful in Namibia with dunes of 50 or 100 meters height. You know, it's very different than Australia. These dunes are massive. So this is a place that I really love. And then also I think I really like Cuba, which is in the Caribbean as well. But there I have traveled during vacation and I really enjoyed these the atmosphere of the place because everything is still kind of stuck in the 60s or 70s. They have still very old cars. The houses look very old. It's a poor country, but they improvise a lot and they manage to get by with the little things they have. And they're actually very welcoming and happy people, I would say.
Yeah. I've never been to Africa actually.
Yeah, it's far away from Singapore.
Nice.
I went to Africa 4 times or 5 times, I guess, but only for work. Last year I went to Uganda filming the wild gorillas in the jungle, which was really nice as well.
As a reporter, what kind of news do you report about? Is there a particular theme which you are more passionate about?
So far in the last 2 years, I was working on social films, like films about people and what they do in their life. Maybe they have some challenges, or what are their thoughts. This is something I did, social topics. And also I sometimes work for scientific programs, so documentaries that would explain you how something works or what people have invented, these kinds of things. And the third area that I sometimes cover would be nature, so filming wildlife or landscapes. These are the 3 areas that I have worked in so far. I have not been filming political news yet or war zone journalism or this kind of stuff. I have not done it. Yeah, and the second part of your question was, what is my favorite, right? So I think what I really like most would be these social topics, visiting people, ask them about their life, their challenges as well. My favorite project was actually filmed here in Germany, and we joined shrimp fishermen on their small boats, and we went out with them for fishing. It was during COVID, and they couldn't sell the shrimp anymore because all the restaurants had closed. So it was a really difficult situation for them. And that was very interesting to accompany them during their work, and also the stories that they told us that they are really desperate because they don't earn any money anymore. So these kinds of stories are interesting to me.
And do you like film only on German media or in like places like BBC and Al Jazeera?
Not yet. No, not yet. So far I have only worked for German TV broadcasters. We do have one broadcaster that is broadcasted internationally, Deutsche Welle, the German wave. So I have worked for them as well. Films were broadcasted internationally and translated into English, Spanish, Arabic, but it's still a German broadcaster.
But still, you film, your work gets put on the news.
Yeah, that's always very, very exciting. Whenever one of the films is broadcasted, I would sit down and watch the TV broadcaster. I would watch it live, even though it will be in the videotheque and in the online library later, but I still would watch it in live TV.
Yeah, it must feel really good when your work gets shown on the news and like almost all of Germany's watching.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. That's true.
Can you tell me more about the documentaries that you have made?
Yes, I can. So the first project that I did was the one about the fishermen that I have already mentioned. And for this same series that is focusing on European people. We will next month travel to the Arctic in Europe, to Svalbard, a small island in the Arctic Circle. I don't know if you can see it on your map. It's above Norway, but very far north. Yeah, small island. So we will film people there, which is the northernmost settlement of the world, and they live there, and they are working in coal mines basically. So this will be the upcoming project, visiting these people, filming in the coal mines, but also the tourism industry that they try to set up there slowly. And then I have filmed a couple of scientific films for another broadcaster in Germany. One was about light pollution, so the effect of using too much light. And fun fact, Singapore is one of the brightest places in the world, which is not very good for the environment.
Yeah.
But this was the topic of the film, like how does too much light affect the insects, for example, or the traveling birds, or even us humans. So that was like a scientific film. And right now I'm working on another scientific film for the same broadcaster about water scarcity. So I visited Tunisia in May, which is in the north of Africa. And we were filming olive farms that are really, really dry because it didn't rain for a couple of years and they have to deal with the drought. So that's the current project. And I did some other films like those wildlife films in Africa. And I did one film about German senior citizens, like people that are in retirement already and they're struggling to find the right accommodation because some of them are affected by poverty. They don't have enough money to get the good apartment.
Wow. I'm actually gonna see if I can find those documentaries and watch them.
Yeah, most of them are still available online for sure.
And in Singapore, the reason it's like there's light pollution is because sometimes in festivals and stuff, in Indian festivals, Little India, it's like fully lit up at night. Like each like junction, there are big posters with lighting and stuff. And on Orchard Road, like I think the biggest in Singapore, the biggest like place in Singapore, there are loads of street lamps which are pretty bright. Loads of big malls and stuff where outside the advertising there's light, screens on those malls, and also like festivals like Christmas and stuff. There are again lots of lighting.
It's crazy. So I think in Singapore it's almost impossible to see the stars, right? Because the city is too bright.
Nah, that's not true. Example, in my condo, lights out, you can still see the stars kind of, but there are a few street lamps, but they're not that bright, so you can see the stars.
Yeah, but you see, maybe what you see is 50 stars or 100 stars.
Yeah.
And if you went to other places, you would see 2,000, 4,000 stars.
Yeah. But I think that's also because there are loads of buildings covering the view.
Maybe, yeah. But it's also about the light. Here in Berlin, I can also not see many stars because it's a bright city, of course. But whenever we travel to Africa, for example, Namibia, and you sleep in the desert, you can see thousands of stars. It's really beautiful.
You said that in Tunisia you made a documentary about like how it didn't rain for like a year, right?
A couple of years, yeah.
In Singapore, ever since I moved in, the max period it hasn't rained is like 1 or 2 weeks.
Okay, so it rains a lot, basically.
Yeah. So I can't imagine not having rain for like a few years.
Well, they do have some really, really small rainfall sometimes in winter, but it's a lot less rain than it used to be because of the climate change, and that is affecting this country very strongly. So the rain is not enough anymore to keep the agriculture alive.
Yeah.
So now they have to use the groundwater and irrigate their plants. But since everybody is using so much groundwater, the water table is sinking. The water is going deeper and deeper. And at those places close to the coast, to the Mediterranean Sea, there will be salt water from the sea floating into the ground to take the place of the groundwater. So now they have water springs that will provide salt water, no fresh water anymore in some areas. That's a big problem.
That's a really big problem.
Yeah.
But I think like there's this device which scientists have invented where it can like filter out all the
Yes.
germs and salt and like make it potable water.
The desalination plants. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We have actually filmed one of these desalination plants in the country, and it does work, but it takes a lot of energy to run it, and also you will have so much salt. A small farm with a small desalination plant can produce like 8 or 10 tons of salt per year. And where do you put the salt? If you throw it back into the ocean, there will be a big impact on the environment. So it's not really a solution that can help the whole country, because you will have thousands of tons of salt.
Yeah. In Singapore, they have a system like a plant. I actually went to visit it where
Mm-hmm.
they take all the water from like example, if you go to the toilet and you flush, they use that water, they filter it, they use reverse osmosis and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
and they put it into bottles.
Yeah.
I tasted it, like you can't even tell that it was from your toilet.
Mm. Yeah, that's really good. And these are the kinds of solutions that we need more in future, I think.
Yeah.
And this is basically what the whole film was about. We didn't only go to Tunisia, we also went to Hamburg, which is a German city, and to Denmark, which is in the north of Europe. And we visited these kinds of places, where they try to recycle water from the toilets or from factories. So yeah, that's basically the topic of this film.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you are already very familiar with the topic.
Yeah. Because I went like to an entire 3 hour tour on it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's actually really nice. You got to see it was a really big plant, like towards the east of Singapore, I think. No,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, southeast of Singapore. And it was huge. And there were loads of pipes, and you could actually
Mm-hmm.
see there were workers, and there were huge pots of water. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was really, really nice to see.
Yeah, I bet. It's good to know. I could have shot parts of the film in Singapore then. Yeah, but it's already done, unfortunately. Maybe next time I can consider it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good reason for me to visit Singapore.
Back to scuba diving. I know that
Mm-hmm.
I've interviewed like someone who does scuba diving who's really into scuba diving, and he said that you need special training for scuba diving. Do you need any more special training to handle a camera while scuba diving?
Well, it's not really required to have any special training, but of course, you need first a special training to know how to scuba dive. And that would be the basic open water certificate or the advanced diving certificate. And I have done a rescue diver schooling. So I know how to, or I have a certificate of being a rescue diver. Yeah. And of course, you need to know how to handle a camera, but the camera works the same way above the water and underwater. And since I'm filming with these kinds of cameras above the water a lot, I already thought that I would be able to handle this camera underwater as well. So I just combined my knowledge of diving and the knowledge of filming with the camera, and I tried it there for the first time. But I did go to a scuba diving pool in Germany before. In Cologne, we have a very big pool which has a depth of 15 meters, I guess, and an artificial shipwreck in it and some obstacles and caves. So I spent a whole day there testing the camera that is a rental camera. So I brought it there and I dove the whole day to make myself familiar with the device before I actually start filming. And that helped a lot, I think, because at first you need to develop a little bit of a routine how to handle the gear. But if you're familiar with the camera already, it is quite easy to use it underwater.
Oh, so you don't need like any super special training on it.
No, you're not required to get any permit or any certificate or visit any training. You don't have to.
You just need like a training to go scuba diving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what you need.
Maybe that's why I can't do it yet.
What can you do? The training for scuba diving?
Yeah, maybe that's why I can't do scuba diving yet because I'm too young.
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe I think some diving schools require you to be 12 or 14 to get the training. But I did my first training when I was 18 in Australia. I get my open water diving certificate. And then 2 years later in the Dominican Republic, I did the advanced. That includes night diving in the dark. And then in Indonesia, in the Komodo National Park, I did the rescue diving course. Yeah, diving is a lot of fun. I love it very much.
Yeah, it looks really fun, like everything you can see underwater. Because I've been to a beach and like looked underwater, but you can't really see anything because I haven't been that far. So, but I've seen videos of it and it looks really fun.
Yeah, it is. It's fun to get close to all these things and also this kind of feeling of weightlessness, almost weightless. You can float around, you know.
What are your upcoming projects?
So the next project is the one that I have already mentioned in Svalbard in the Arctic Circle.
Yeah.
I will travel there next month for 10 days. And we will arrive just at the end of Polar Day. So when we arrive there, it's still 24 hours daylight, no night at all.
Wow.
And then during that time, during our stay, it will slowly turn into day and night rhythm. But first, for the couple of days, the night will be 20 minutes, 30 minutes between sunset and sunrise, you know?
Wow.
And we have a lot of really interesting cultural events that we will attempt there. There will be a celebration of the mining workers in the city. And there will be small concerts, you know, because it's a very remote community. They will always try to get some culture and some entertainment for the people living there. And we will film these kinds of things. And I'm really, really excited for that. And then the next project after this will be a documentary about German expats, people from Germany that move to other countries to live there permanently. And I will do an episode in Belize. So I will return to Belize in October and film some German expats in that country. Also go scuba diving again. And right after that, we will do another episode for the same series about German expats in Guatemala, which is right next to Belize. And in December, I will shoot another wildlife film in Botswana. So these are the upcoming projects.
Do you have any tips for someone who wants to follow your career?
You mean for people who want to work in journalism?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you want to work in journalism, you have to be the kind of person that enjoys talking to people, asking questions, getting to know people. You know, not everybody is outgoing and extrovert, but if you are, then it might be a really good job for you if you're interested in traveling, getting to know new people and spend time with them and listen to these people. Like I think this is the quality that you have to bring in order to work in journalism. And the good news is that at least here in Germany, I feel like these people are in demand. Like if you want to work as a TV filmmaker, you will find jobs because we're always looking for people who want to film for TV. So that is very good. And in Europe, there would be two ways to get this career started. I'm not really sure if this applies for Singapore or Asia, but here in Germany, you could either study journalism or filmmaking, like I did. I studied filmmaking with journalism, both in one bundle, basically. Or what you could do also is go directly to the TV broadcaster because they offer trainings, 2-year trainings, and they would hire people and then they would teach them how to shoot films, how to tell stories, how to edit films. So it's not that complicated to become a journalist if you want to, you can study it, you can get the training, and then once you finish with that, you can either stay at the broadcaster that you did your training with, or if you have studied like me and you have not yet been introduced to the broadcasters, then you need to make connections very soon. And that's also why I moved to Berlin, to a very big city with a lot of production companies and broadcasters. And when I arrived here, it was really easy for me to connect to all these production companies. So, but you have to be a little bit outgoing, you have to go there, introduce yourself, and ask if you can join some projects. And with these kinds of projects, you will meet more people. And I feel like in big cities like Berlin, it's pretty easy to get into this network and just start working. So yeah, I would say it's not that complicated. Maybe people always think it's really complicated to become a traveling journalist who films in Africa or somewhere, but it's actually not. It's easy to get in there.
What about filmmaking? Do you have any tips for someone who wants to become a filmmaker?
Yeah, filmmaking and journalism for me goes hand in hand because I do journalism in films. That's why I chose my university that offers filmmaking and journalism. But of course, there are other kinds of filmmaking, like filming for scripted films, for Netflix shows, for example, or for advertisement. And I think this is a little bit more difficult to get into, but also a good start would be probably to study filmmaking or to get a training somewhere, and then also move to a big city and try to get connections. I have some friends from university who went into directing of Netflix shows, for example. And I feel like it's a little bit harder for them to get the right connections to end up in these projects. So many of them, sometimes they work at other students' films for free. Then they go to film festivals with these kinds of films. And at some point they will find the right contacts to actually get paid for their work. But I cannot say too much about this area because I'm not so familiar with the other kinds of filmmaking.
Yeah, it like looks really fun to be a filmmaker or a journalist. Like whenever I see the news on TV or I'm watching a movie or a documentary, I'm like, wow, it must be so fun filming all of this.
Yeah, exactly. Because when I used to watch news before being a filmmaker, I didn't even realize that somebody had to be there in person at this crazy place that I'm watching right now. But somebody actually went there with a camera and saw all this live. And that is the filmmaker. That is really, really great.
But nowadays it's like all drones and robots, kind of, right?
drones and robots.
So it's not like robots, but like stands which move around on rails, kind of.
Yeah, in the big cinema sets, yes, but for TV journalism, not so much. Of course, we use drones a lot, very much, which is a bummer because in the past, the filmmaker actually went up there with a helicopter, and now we just bring the drone up. So that is sad for me. But apart from that, we don't have so much big equipment because we need to travel, we need to be fast, we cannot shoot the same scene multiple times. If something happens, we have to capture it without being distracted from too much technical devices. So we have some small tripods. We have maybe a gimbal, which is a handheld stabilization system for the camera. But we don't bring any rails or cranes or cable cams. No, we don't.
Yeah. But for like big Netflix series, you do.
For sure, yeah. They have all kinds of stuff. Even the robot arms that you can program before, and then they will do an exact camera movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a very different kind of filmmaking, definitely. Because they can just shoot the same shot over and over again until they nail it. But if we film something, we only have one chance usually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you want to be as a child?
That is a really fun question. Most of the time, or for the longest time during childhood, I wanted to be an architect. And then at some point, I actually did an internship in an architecture firm, and I hated it because they worked for 12 hours every day and everybody was so stressed out. So I decided not to do it. And then I wanted to become a farmer because I was sometimes working at our neighbor's farm, milking the cows. But after a couple of months, I realized it's hard work and not really well paid. And at some point, I thought I could be a teacher. But also I decided against it because of all the kids that I had to deal with. And I think it would be too much to deal with kids every day, with so many kids at the same time. So I became a filmmaker. And then I remembered that actually the first time I thought about what I wanted to become was when I was 5 or 6 years old. And I would visit my grandma and watch TV with her. And we watched those nature documentaries about white sharks. And back then I said, when I grow up, I want to be a cameraman who films white shark underwater. It was the first time me saying that I want to become a certain profession, which is funny, right? Because at some point I actually went to film sharks later on. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I actually don't know what I want to do because like I have so many things I like to do. I just don't know what to pick. But I guess like I still have time.
A lot of time, yeah. And you have a lot of insights because of this podcast, right?
Yeah.
So many people are telling you about their jobs, their lives. So it might be easier for you to choose something than for other people.
Yeah, so for like everyone who comes on the show, it like adds on one thing to my what I want to be list.
Challenging. So you don't have you actually have too many options now to choose from.
Yeah. And my mom actually used to be an architect.
Your mother? Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Back in India, she was an architect. And actually, my grandfather is still an architect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it's a really fun job, but so hard work, right? They have crazy long working hours.
Yeah. And also, like, learning how to use all that software and stuff, it must be really complicated.
Yeah. I think the difference between architecture and filmmaking in terms of the workload is that they are working all the time so much. For filmmaking, it's like, it's really relaxed when I prepare the shooting, Then, of course, the shooting is a lot of work. Sometimes in Tunisia, for example, we shot 10 hours a day and we had to drive another 4 hours every day. And then in the editing process, it also can take a lot of time. But after finishing the film, after 2 months, I can take a break. And the architects, they have so long projects for a couple of years. They have to focus on the same thing.
Yeah. And then after that, they only have like, I think, a week's break or something before they have another big project.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. But you do something which is really fun.
For sure, yeah. And I'm sure you will find something very fun as well.
Yeah. I actually like use my mom's camera sometimes. Like we recently went to Bali and over there we got to use her camera. And yeah, it was really fun. We went to this wildlife reserve place, kind of, where they had loads of monkeys and like over there we really couldn't take many photos because the monkeys would like come and snatch the camera. Like the monkey actually stole someone's sanitizer and just picked it up.
Yeah, these monkeys are crazy. I have been there too, in Bali and also in Lombok, and I was almost robbed by monkeys as well. Yeah. When I went in Lombok, right, I rented a small scooter, and I stopped in a forest on a hill to apply sunscreen. So I took off my watch, which is a metal watch, and one monkey just grabbed the watch and slowly took it into the forest. But I had some chips, banana chips, so I opened the bag and I threw the chips somewhere, and all the monkeys went running towards the chips. So I grabbed my watch and left quickly. Yeah,
so your watch is safe.
My watch is safe. Yeah, I broke it a couple of months later, so now it's gone.
At least monkeys didn't take it.
At least it was my own fault. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on my show. I really enjoyed speaking to you.
Thank you. Yes, I enjoyed it very much as well, and I'm very curious to see what else you will do in the future.
Yeah. Now I have so many things on my mind on what to do, but I think filmmaking is now in the top 3.
That is really nice. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a really good profession for sure. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dear listeners, follow my Facebook page, Curious Vedant, to get updates on my upcoming episodes. To listen at leisure on your phone and get notified about future episodes, subscribe by searching for Curious Vedant wherever you get your podcasts, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also listen to my show on CuriousVedant.com. Thank you for listening to Curious Vedant, and don't forget to rate and leave comments.